And I guess that's it. Who is here is here once again. Welcome to this. I almost said podcast. To this part of the seminar today with us, you'll be listening about tourism in protected areas from the different perspective, from the perspective of people who mostly work in conservation. Today with us are Mr. Federico Niccolini. He is associate professor at the University of Pisa. He'll make the general introduction about tourism in protected areas. Then after we have Snježana Malić Limari, Anna Krvarić, and myself, Mosor, Prvan. All of us work for World Wildlife Organization, WWF, in the Adria office. Adria office covers Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Albania, Montenegro, and Macedonia. And I guess that's it for the start. Now I'm going to leave Signore Federico to start his presentation. Professore, the table is yours. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, should be done.
Yes, it's well. You can go on.
Okay, do you see my slides now?
We do indeed.
Okay. Good morning to everyone, and good morning from Italy and from Tuscany. I will try to make some reflection on the relationship between sustainable tourism and protected areas, starting and moving from some researches that I conducted with other researchers in some protected areas. I will present a multiple case study, exploratory study on 6 Mediterranean marine protected areas. Then I follow with a research on Italian benchmark experience of another marine protected areas, finding some similarities. Then I try to show you the situation of the Italian protected areas, and I try to finish with some perspective due to the COVID pandemic scenario that we are, unfortunately, we are living. Mosor told you that I'm professor in the University of Pisa. I've been a visiting professor to some USA university and organizer of master and postgraduate courses in protected areas management in some Italian universities. And before getting in the university, I've been consultant. I'm still doing researches for directly in protected areas. Started with the Abruzzo National Park, then with the National Park Service in USA, and then Italian, especially now marine protected areas. I've been member for 20 years of the IUCN VCPA. So let's start for the first multiple case study. I conducted, led a team of some researchers studying 6 marine protected areas in Mediterranean. 2 from Algeria, 2 from Italy, 1 from Tunisia, 1 from Croatia. And the study was broader than tourism. We were a team of different organizations. WWF was the leader, and then Universities of Pisa and the Consorzio Nazionale Interuniversitario per le Scienze del Mare is CONISMA, is an organization that join different experience, different university for study the marine sciences. We produced the report we analyzed a couple of key stakeholders, groups in marine protected areas. One was the small-scale fishermen, and the other one was the nature-based tourism. What we expected from the analysis of nature-based tourism was some particular kind of tourism, like diving, snorkeling, were well developed and a source of good source of income for local population. So we interviewed 375 nature-based tourism, mainly divers. What we found about nature-based tourism, that the diving sector in the 6 marine protected areas was differently developed. In a couple of one very well developed, Tabarka and Egadi Island. In the other one was scarcely developed. So globally, the effects on local income were small. There is a good willingness to pay about this kind of tourism to contribute to conservation projects. The education level of this kind of tourists is very high compared to the other tourists. And also the age is younger than the average of the other tourism. And there is a high level of awareness of this tourism. But the core of the tourism in these protected areas was the mass tourism, and this tourism was mainly seasonal. Let's go on another Italian benchmark experience where we studied Tavolara, Punta Cotacavallo, normally known as Tavolara, that is in the north of Sardinia. What happened in Tavolara? Before 2004, Tavolara took 25 years from the identification of the marine protected area to become a marine protected area with an organization managing the protected areas from 1982 to 2004. Before, we had a non-conservative use mainly of the area, touristic area, both of the wildlife and both of the landscape. After a few years that the marine protected area organization management was established, researchers found many outputs. Tavolara became a benchmark realities in Mediterranean for some indicators. For example, the density of biomass, especially of some animals like big grouper that can become a tourist attractor, especially for divers. But what we found that anyway, we applied the travel method cost as we did in the other 6 marine protected areas. And we found that even if the nature-based tourism is well organized, the relevance, the impact of tourist spending on local economies is limited, extremely limited, if compared to the mass beach tourism, because we have much more mass beach tourism. But what we found also, that anyway, mass tourist preference are oriented on the aspects that are well managed, conserved, and improved in the quality by the marine protected areas. So the marine protected areas we found that are attractors of selected nature-based tourism, and most of all can improve the sustainability at the same time, the the experience, the touristic experience of mass tourists. So if you see this list of aspects that we interviewed in tourists about their experience in the marine protected area, you see that on the top of the vote, almost on the top of the scale, we have 4 aspects that are improved in the quality by the presence of the marine protected area. So also the mass tourism appreciate the function, the role, and the activity of the marine protected area. Italian protected areas are growing. We have more than 3,900 protected area. Most of them are European sites, Natura 2000 sites, but we have also 25 national parks, we have 32 marine protected areas, 150 regional parks, and a lot of regional reserve. We have 0 category 1A IUCN protected areas. We have more than 100 category 1B. So wilderness area are small and not so much. And most of the extension is the category 5, as you see this man in the Cinque Terre National Park, as maybe a paradigmatic example of Italian protected area. So trying to finish in 10 minutes. The last slide. What we are experimenting that protected areas are relevant to attract few niche of tourism like divers, hikers in the mountains, but most of all can be important to transform, to improve in a sustainable way the management of the landscape of the area, of course, and at the same time improve the quality experience of the not strictly nature-based tourism. And the COVID is can be also an opportunity. I try to explain. In this summer, we in Tuscany experienced an incredible amount increase of visitation in the mountains. In area where we have protected area. Those people searches facilities, not directly ecotourism, but like to go where there is a protected area. And so those new amount of people can be educated, can be managed, and can approach to and discover the reality of the protected areas. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Federico. Now, before we move to our next presenter, Snježana, I would just like to point out that you can ask questions. Down there in the strip of Zoom, there is a Q&A section. If you open it, you can submit your questions. We'll try to answer them there directly by writing if you have time. If not, we'll be answering them live at the end of all of the presentations. Snježana, floor is yours. You are muted and we can see the screen.
Can you see my presentation?
Yep, now we can.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I will give a general presentation about tourism in Croatian protected areas. And this slide is only for viewers which are not from Croatia, just a quick snapshot about the nature protection system in Croatia. Nature protection has long tradition, starting since 1949 and establishment of 2 national parks, Plitvice Lakes and Paklenica. Today we have more than 100 protected areas in different categories, and my presentation will deal with those protected areas which are on national level of protection, meaning 8 national parks and 11 nature parks. On the left you can see Natura 2000 ecological network. It is the 2nd largest in EU, and it comprises more than 1/3 of our territory. Reasons for this are Croatia has 3 biogeographic regions and also historic reasons. Croatia never had strong industry. So now about tourism in protected areas. At the beginning, it is good. I should say that Croatia was listed for full 10 years as a top 10 fastest growing major travel destinations in the world, and Croatia has doubled their number of tourists in just 9 years. I have put here 2 years just to picture this, 2017 and 2019. But the problem is that most of this tourism happens during summer season, meaning July and August, when half of that number comes and visits Croatia, and every 4th visitor visits one of our protected areas. So 4 million visitors in 19 national parks and nature parks. That isn't too much, but out of those 4 million, 3 million visitors visits 2 national parks, globally known Plitvice Lakes and Krka. So that it is pressure, and you can see it on here on pictures. This is another way to present those data. Blue line is representing national parks, and you can see the increase. And there is another characteristic that differs them. National parks are mostly visited by foreign visitors, and nature parks are mostly visited by domestic, almost 80%. And you can also see here the flat line where nature parks are. So there is no increase, and I should say here that 6 protected areas don't have entrance fee. So if we could include those numbers, would increase even more. So with that trend of increase in tourism in Croatia and also in protected areas are relevant authority, ministry, right now it is called the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, which contains Department for Nature Protection and also former Agency for Environment and Nature Protection, run gap analysis about tourism in protected areas, and here are the findings which were rated low. Insufficient high quality visitor infrastructure, tourism impact monitoring almost not existing, stakeholders involvement, knowledge of tourism management, promotional and marketing activities, inadequate visual identity, and inadequate funding. All these were rated as low. And from now on until the end of the presentation, I will speak about responses of nature protection system in Croatia on those findings. So first, in 19 protected areas, in 19 national parks and nature parks, 20 big visitor infrastructure projects were prepared and now are ongoing. All of them are going to be finished in the next 2 years. Here are the pictures of some of the projects, and it should be said that all of these projects were prepared, all these visitor centers were prepared as a multifunctional, not only places for visitor management, for education, but also as a place for communication with stakeholders. So strong emphasis on education and interpretation was put. Second finding was low monitoring of tourism impact. which means that we didn't have proper visitor management. And today, we are developing first generation of visitor management plans, and also recommendations were created for these visitor management plans by former Croatian agency. Lots of things are going to be done under this development of visitor management plans. For instance, every protected area will have to research their visitors structure and attitudes, and for the first time they will know who visits them. Also, we had training on one specific methodology, which was, let's say, recommended for use in protected areas. This is limits of acceptable change. And we had education in Croatia by authors of this methodology. About visibility, the response was that Ministry and former Croatian agency have created brand parks of Croatia and many outputs with this, like you can see here on slide, web portal with web shop. All parks were standardized and networked. And also here you can see tourist signalization. I think after 5 years that protected area system is much more known to general public. And also one of the goals of this brand was to redistribute visitors from highly visited protected areas into others. Stakeholders involvement. Here I should say first that it is not that protected areas didn't involve with stakeholders, didn't involve stakeholders into management, but here we are talking about a little bit deeper involvement. I will present 2 examples. Charter for Sustainable Tourism by Europark, which 3 protected areas have in Croatia. This certification process is initiated by protected area management. So protected area management calls all stakeholders from protected area into cooperation. The obligatory thing is to establish a long-term multi-stakeholder platform and to cooperate, and also to produce a strategy for sustainable tourism development. So this is the first case. And the second case, I think maybe Mosor will talk a little bit about it, is a little bit different. Initiator of this process are stakeholders, and they are not producing something on big level like for whole protected area, but small tourism product. They have also obligation to establish these platforms for stakeholders. It is called here local ecotourism clusters. And I see that I have 2 minutes left. I will skip. This is very good thing. It is not necessary to work only on tourism aspect of management of protected area. These are all long-term platforms, and sooner or later you can work on other aspects of management of protected area. Visitor education interpretation, I have already said it was always very strong, emphasized. In fact, it was obligatory. I will choose from here just 2 things. Every protected area will have educational programs which are connected with national curriculum, which means that school children can come and have school in nature for 1 day. And also volunteering park program is very interesting and high quality programs are those. Every protected area needed to develop 1 or more volunteering program for volunteers. And when you are applying, you can choose by your preferences. Do you want to work in conservation field, in tourism field? Do you want to stay half a day, 2 weeks? So it's really very good program. Competencies and capacity building also here we have done lots of progress. I would split it, let's say, in two phases. First phase was happening, you can see on slide, when first program for education for PA staff was developed, and 17 thematic educational modules were developed. Almost 1,300 PA staff were educated on those trainings. The second phase is in 2016 and 17. First training needs assessment was conducted, and new national plan for capacity building for protected areas management is created. Limits of acceptable change methodology education I have already mentioned, and right now undergoing project development of Natura 2000 management framework has identified 6 topics for capacity building, and one of those topics is visitor management. So this will happen next year. Visitor safety.
You are in the last minutes. You are in the last minute.
Please have mercy. I have 3 slides, I think. Visitor safety, this is going to be integral part of visitor management plans. It is very good to have them. Most of the parks didn't have that. And it is of highly important. So risk assessments are going to be made, risks identified, and then action plans developed with goal to reduce those risks. And also second step is development of procedures in emergency situations. We had 2 protected areas which were hit by events related to climate change effects. I worked in Nature Park Medvenica when the Theodore storm hit the park, so we didn't have that procedure, and it is not good to have that in place, not only for visitor safety, but also for the safety of PA staff and all the stakeholders which live or work inside of the protected area. And I have put also here just a few words, program Green Line, which was initiated by Ministry and by Fund for Environment Protection and Energy Sufficient. All protected areas could participate with projects related to energy sufficient lighting, transport, buildings, and you can see on pictures here that we have developed, built in Croatia, e-tourist boats, e-bikes for different tourism programs, etc. And this is the last slide. You can see here listed some basic guiding principles for development of sustainable tourism. And I have checked with green check marks all the principles which our nature protection system was tackled, which dealt with. So at the end of this presentation, I would conclude with this. When you develop any tourism activity in your protected area, you should keep in mind that you should always do it keeping in mind that those activities should be consistent with your management plan objectives and values of the park. And if you have a conflict, then you should choose first protection. So thank you very much. I will be taking questions and answering them later at the end of the webinar.
Thank you, Snježana, for the in-depth presentation. Once again, question and answer section you have underneath. So you can post your questions there, and we can either answer them while some of us are giving presentation, or in the end we can have live answering. Anyway, Snježana went a little bit into my time. Thank you, Snježana. So I'll have to be a little bit shorter. As you can see from the Snježana presentation, the tourism development in protected areas is something that's happening not just because tourism is driven to protected areas, but also the protected areas from their side are building infrastructure to support the tourism, and to this infrastructure they are kind of trying to build a tourism that can go hand in hand with conservation. From the point of WWF, wait a second, just a second, here I go. From the point of WWF, there was also a big question, do we work on tourism, how we work on tourism, and so on. And I call it here a thin red line. And there was a big discussion within our organization, should we do it and how should we do it? But then again, on the other side, we can see protected areas are already working on it. And there is, I have to say, there is a big pressure from politics to use protected areas in tourism as, let's say, cash machines to drive tourists. Tourism is probably the most important economic sector in Croatia. So basically, the role of WWF Adria is conservation. We are organization that promotes conservation, that works on conservation, and our involvement, let's say, with tourism came from working in protected areas. A bunch of our work is done in protected areas, and most of where we are trying to make them more effective. And most of the things that we are doing were kind of stumbling upon tourism, dealing with local tourism sector, dealing with outside agencies, dealing with protected area managers, and so on. So there was a million questions for us. Should we deal with tourism in protected areas? If yes, how? If not, do we oppose tourism in protected areas? Are we to be involved in development of tourism in protected areas? Who do we work with? Do we have the capacity to work on it? What kind of approach and engagement would be meaningful for conservation and local communities if we do it? And then in the end, what fail-safes do we install in order not to create a monster instead of basically trying to improve conservation? And from there we narrowed a million questions to $1 million question. This is not the actual question, just to see if you're paying attention. But from our side, the $1 million question is basically how to have tourism that can walk hand in hand in conservation, or in other words, how to improve local livelihoods and local incomes on one side, while at the same time not improving burden on natural resources and landscapes. So we came up with a 4C approach, and I went to Google 4C to see what kind of image would come up, and this is the image that comes up, and it's written, this is the sexiest car currently in existence. This was kind of funny for me, because when we were talking about what kind of approach we need to have, we said it needs to be something sexy, sexy incentive for the private sector to work with us, instead of going, you know, to look for cash and carry, to look for something that's at the one side sustainable, but on the other side sexy enough for them to get engaged in it and make a living out of it. So the 4C approach that we came up with was commercial viability. So whatever tourism project we decide to support or develop, it has to be a good business opportunity, not a good business opportunity for us, but a good business opportunity for the people who are engaged in this business, or companies who are engaged there. Why is this important? Maybe this sounds like, of course, for people who work in the private sector, but the experience of development of tourism in protected areas and ecotourism over the last 30 years was that a lot of money was invested as grants, not as business money, but as grants in development of ecotourism. And the activities and businesses that were developed, once they were let alone, they didn't function, they didn't work, they didn't create a value. The second thing is, of course, conservation impact. It must be a low impact project, or in some way it needs to contribute to conservation agenda. It has to help develop the local community. So project must, basically money earned from the project needs to mostly stay in the local community. And the project, the initiative needs to appreciate local culture, local circumstances, traditions, values, and so on. So this was the framework we created for ourselves in order to engage in tourism. And so in parallel, we said, okay, let's see what we can do. Let's move forward. Let's see what we can put in practice and see if these forces actually can work. Does it make sense to work? So one of the projects that we work on is called DESTIMED. And the idea of the DESTIMED was to create a product that would enable travelers to discover protected areas, but while at the same time supporting conservation. Together with our partners, this is not just a WWF project, we selected 13 pilot protected areas in Albania, Croatia, France, Greece, Italy, and Spain. 2 of those were in Croatia. On the right side of the screen, you can see photos from Nature Park Lastovo Islands and National Park Kornati. And what we said, okay, let's go ahead and let's try to set up a tourism package, an itinerary that's happening inside or around marine protected areas, but do this together with local communities, with local tourism operators, tourism providers, and service providers. So basically, accommodation, guiding, transport, food, activities, everything had to be local. So the value stays locally and builds a new value locally. The thing that we are looking for also in these activities that are to be part of these itineraries, where it needs to support conservation. And the main idea was to answer a $1 million question. So how to lower the impact on nature while improving the income for the locals. And the good example that I always like to point out is fishing tourism. So what we did with fishing tourism is that we went ahead. There is now a legal framework in Croatia to do it completely legally. We went ahead with professional fishers that we are also involved on, because we, as WWF, we work a lot with fishers. And we set up an activity where fishermen or the members of their family take tourists, small groups of tourists aboard. They take them out, and instead of doing 3 kilometers of nets fishing, they use just 300 meters. So for demonstration, and later on, you know, they talk about the life of a fisher, the tradition, the culture. They show how it's done. They also talk about the environment, and in the end, it ends up with the lunch that's shared with the family, with the tourists and the family of the fisher. And it turned out really amazing. We made partnerships with local agencies, but also with international agencies like Trepid Travel. It's one of the biggest global sustainable tourism agencies, and now we will be looking to expand this on a national level out of just of these pilots. And the point is, this fisher earned more money that day from tourism that he could have earned from fishing, and at the same time he reduced the fishing effort. He fished less. He fished 90% less. Instead of 3 kilometers, just 300 meters of nets. In parallel, we also said, but okay, it's clear with these kind of activities, but what about accommodation? What about transportation? What about food? So we went ahead and developed the tourism impact monitoring tool. And it's first of its kind that was done this way. What we had a cooperation with the Global Footprint Network. It's an NGO that works on calculation of ecological footprints. So we created a software. It's an online, free online footprint calculator for tourism. When you insert all your itineraries, activities, transportation, food, whatever you have inside, you put in, and basically you come out. It says you if you are in red, in green, in yellow, what you need to improve, and so on. And also in parallel, we set up the MEET organization. MEET is Mediterranean ecotourism, Mediterranean experience in ecotourism. And the idea of this organization, it's an NGO, it's a non-government organization, was to put all of these protected areas together and then to promote these packages, these itineraries that we created for these protected areas inside the local ecotourism cluster. So local ecotourism cluster, it was us, it was local service providers, local private sector, and protected area management. And basically, within this, we created these itineraries on the foundations that I told you about. And from there, MIT has a commercial branch which acts as a destination management company for these Mediterranean protected areas. This was done so once the project is completed, everything does not go to waste. So beyond the project horizon, this continues to roll on. This is the MIT theory of change. We build low impact tourist visits. They have better or more sustainable behavior. We lower the tourism pressure. There is more money for conservation because out of each sold package, a certain amount of money goes to protected areas for conservation project. The rest of the money goes to the local community, so it stays in the local community. This improves the reputation of protected areas. There is always conflict between the locals living there and protected areas. They now clearly can see the benefit from the protected area, so we reduce the conflict. PA management, protected area management has a role in the development of these packages, and in the end we have co-developed packages that are managed together with the private sector based on this framework. I put in the resources for your further exploration if you're willing to look. On the right side, that's the web page where you can calculate the ecotourism footprint. In the middle is the MIT manual, so manual of how what we stand for. And in the left is the manual how to actually build these ecotourism activities. And MIT is open to participation of any Mediterranean protected area, not just the marine one, but also the ones that are based on the land. I hyperlinked all of those, so once you get from the organizers, once you get the PPT, you can actually click and visit all. We'll visit all of these resources. Shout out to my DESTIMED project partners. It was not just the WWF, it was Regione Lazio, Medpan, Federparki, IUCN, Albanian National Institute for Protected Areas as well involved. And the project was funded by European Regional Development Fund, just as MISTRAL project is the same. Something that I would like to stress out and shout out is that the main role of protected areas is conservation of nature, not tourism. So tourism in those areas must be an added value and not a purpose of them. And it usually is when you look at reports from the newspapers, reports from the ministry, and the ministry, they say, oh, this year we had more visitors than the last year. That's not a good thing. You can have more money from this with less pressure and less visitors. And that's it for all from my side. Thank you very much for listening. If you have questions, please post them down in Q&A section. And now we move to my colleague, Anna. She's going to give you another example of WWF involvement in tourism in protected areas. Thank you. Anna, you are muted. You are still muted.
Sorry, we had technical problems. Thanks, Mosor.
No worries. Someone had to have them. So
sorry, from the technical side, we also need you to enable us to share screen because we had some technical problems. I had to go out and then back again.
Okay, then I'll ask our technical support to enable this because I'm not able to do it, or maybe I am. Let's see if I can do it. I don't know how. Technical stuff, we need help.
Is something happening now?
Nope. Yeah.
Can you see the presentation?
We can. Go ahead.
Okay, excellent. Just a second. Okay, I hope you see it now on the full screen. So my name is Anna, and I will shortly talk about the CEETO project that was implemented from 2017 to 2020. So CEETO actually stands for Central Europe Ecotourism, Tools for Nature Protection. Project partners were from 6 Central European countries. You can see them on the left-hand side of the slide. And basically our main objectives of the project was to protect and enhance the natural heritage of protected areas by promoting innovative sustainable tourism governance models, and also to sustain social and territorial cohesion of protected areas. Our audience, as you can see it on the right-hand side of the slide, was very various, and they were included from the start of the project until the end of the project inside the various activities we implemented. The project was, let's say, implemented in a few phases. One was diagnostic phase, the second one was testing phase, and the last one was networking phase, or the phase where we developed various guiding documents. So in the first diagnostic phase, we checked which are the most innovative and successful tools today in practice for tourism management in protected areas, and also how to monitor and manage touristic flows in protected areas that were involved in our project. And for this purpose, we developed a handbook of successful and innovative practices. And inside this handbook, we in detail describe and also evaluate in effectiveness and complexity of various tools for planning, management, and monitoring of sustainable tourism in protected areas. You can see on the pictures below some of the methodologies we identified, and also on the right-hand side how this evaluation was done. So based on this diagnostic phase, we went into the testing phase, where we first dealt with the capacity building of protected areas in their collaboration with local stakeholders. And after that, they actually started implementing their pilot actions. And based on that, they developed action plans for sustainable tourism development in their areas. These processes were based on participatory planning, so whether those were forum meetings within the protected areas or workshops with a wider range of stakeholders in protected areas. I will show some of these testing pilot areas, which I think will be most interesting for you. So first one was Strunjan Landscape Park. This is the biggest marine protected area in Slovenia, and their pilot action was focused on reducing environmental impacts and pressures coming from tourism-related activity. And they implemented visitor survey to better know their profile and develop educational video about the protection of the area to raise awareness of visitors. And they also developed study on landscaping and spatial planning in order to obtain a conceptual solution for the regulation of the area. And one of the interesting action was cooperation between park authority, municipality, a local transportation company, and 3 hotels and a campsite. And they all together set up and promoted free of charge shuttle service in order to alleviate traffic jams and parking problems they had in their park. The other one is Salsedinirano Reserve in Italy. It is a small hilly basin mainly characterized by mud volcanoes, so pseudo-volcanic events. And pilot action aimed to implement database monitoring and participatory tourism governance model in the reserve. And they wanted to solve problem of significant tourist flow in this sensitive area, and also poor behavior of visitors. And the interesting tool they used was a video content analysis system. And this system is consisted of 3 video surveillance cameras that were connected to automatic data processing. Data obtained from these cameras were sent to park authority and municipalities, and they used this data to quantify the extent of the problem and also to plan the appropriate defense measures. And even those recorded images are used for monitoring of these volcanoes for further monitoring within, let's say, scientific research of these mud volcanoes. The third one is Medvednica Nature Park in Croatia, which faces heavy visitation during spring and autumn weekends and also winter skiing season. And all of this causes environmental problems in the park. So measures to solve heavy traffic and lack of parking space in the park were designed based on data collected via electronic car counters and also video cameras. Those counters and video cameras were installed on the most problematic spots. They also implemented visitor survey to know the structure, habits, and views of their visitors. And also data obtained from both these monitoring schemes help park management to develop their sustainable tourism action plan. Based on this testing phase, we then went into the final phase, networking and developing guidelines. And basically here we developed guidelines for policymakers, which gave recommendations and conclusions like the need of holistic and inclusive approach to solving challenges, long-term development perspective to have, so then systematic evaluation of the effectiveness of used tools, and of course, financial, economic, and social sustainability of measures. The other one was on the right-hand side of the slide, manual for PA managers. And actually, it is very practical tool, basic tool to support the development and the management processes of sustainable tourism. Snježana earlier in her presentation, I think it was the last slide, she mentioned all of these processes, and all of those processes are tackled really practically in this manual. Further on, we also developed guidelines for protected areas to work with tour operators. And this document mostly focused on the experience of the Europarks Charter for Sustainable Tourism in Protected Areas process. So three parts of this charter process. First one, developing sustainable tourism destination. Second part, development of long-term cooperation with local stakeholders. And then the third one, finally, opening collaboration with tour operators and travel agencies. Challenges here are to be attentive to expectation, practices, and constraints of all stakeholders involved in those processes. And the other one is also seeing tourism as an essential and productive public-private collaboration, which then opens the door for global sustainability in this protected area. It is also important that PA managers need to understand how the tour operating ecosystem works. But on the other hand, private operators should not forget the protected area and its management, and not just view the landscape as an area for their customers. And finally, all of those documents and examples of tested pilot actions are available and can be reached on CEETO network online platform. Now consistent of various researchers, public authorities, PA managers, and so on. So it's open to anyone. And so all of these documents can be reached via this online platform. You can see the web extension on the slide. And it is basically free of charge and easy to use for every interested party. So here, by registering to the platform, you can join public and private discussions. You can also reach documents repository, not only CEETO documents, but other important documents in this area, and also quick access to the glossary of important terms. So I tried to be short. I hope I didn't talk too fast. So thank you for your attention, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Anna. You broke the record for being fast. You win the prize. We had a couple of questions. I answered them in Q&A section as we went. So if you have any more questions for us, please put them in the Q&A section. We can answer them live now. If not, and if my colleagues are fine with it, I would like to take the opportunity that we have some extra time, or do we actually have extra time? I'm not sure if how close we are to ending and when we need to end. We have few more minutes, I think. Yeah, it seems it's we run out of time. Then in that case, thank you all for attending. I hope that you got the idea, the perspective of how people who are mostly involved in conservation and sustainability approaches look at tourism in protected areas, and what kind of challenges we face while working with tourism, and maybe out of this some new cooperations will come out. Anna, Snježana, Federico, if you have any final words, now would be the time.
Just from my side, just congratulations for the mixing, harmonization of the presentation. It has been a good learning experience, of course.
Thank you, Federico. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you for participating, and see you in other webinars.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.